Aduh. Posisi. Astaga.
On the ground.
At 3:27 in the morning, the ground beneath Palu started shaking, and it did not stop for more than a full minute. A magnitude 6.7 earthquake struck Sulawesi, Indonesia, while the city of 400,000 people was asleep. Shallow, violent, and without warning. People woke up to walls cracking around them, furniture moving across floors, and the sound of concrete failing. The instinct was immediate and universal. Get out, get away from buildings, get into the open. And they ran, into streets, into parks, into any open space they could find in the dark. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because this is not just another earthquake in a seismically active country. This is Palu, and for the people of this city, every strong tremor carries the weight of a memory that never fully fades. Let us start with the science, because the numbers behind this earthquake explain everything about why the response was so immediate and so intense. The epicenter was located approximately 43 kilometers east-southeast of Palu, the provincial capital of central Sulawesi. The depth of the rupture was 10 kilometers. That is extremely shallow. When an earthquake ruptures deep underground, the rock between the rupture and the surface absorbs and dissipates a significant portion of the energy before it reaches the ground above. The deeper the quake, the more natural cushioning exists between the fault and the buildings sitting on top of it. At 10 kilometers depth, there is almost no cushioning.
Okay. Ya Allah. Ya Allah.
The energy from the rupture reaches the surface with close to full force. The shaking in Palu lasted for more than 60 seconds, which is an extremely long duration for a magnitude 6.7 event and reflects the shallow nature of the rupture. One local resident described it as the strongest shaking they had felt in years, unlike anything recent in their experience. Buildings across the city showed the effects. Partially collapsed roofs, shattered walls, debris scattered across streets throughout the urban area. Hospitals across Palu made the immediate decision to evacuate patients outdoors, including critically ill individuals still connected to IV drips and medical equipment. Staff moved patients outside where they would be protected from potential structural collapse as aftershocks continued to follow the main event. The strongest aftershock measured magnitude 5.2, with additional aftershocks recorded at 5.0 and 4.9.
Situasi Jembatan 3 retak.
Emergency teams urge residents to remain outside and away from damaged structures. Indonesia's Meteorological and Geophysical Agency confirmed there was no tsunami danger, a crucial determination that was communicated as quickly as possible. But even with no official tsunami warning issued, thousands of residents moved away from the coastline anyway, without being told to, without an order, just instinct, built from lived experience. Because Palu remembers 2018. On September 28, 2018, a magnitude 7.5 earthquake struck just north of the city. What followed was one of the most devastating and scientifically remarkable natural disasters of the past decade.
Goyangannya sangat keras sekali. Gempa bumi terjadi di kota Palu hari ini.
The earthquake triggered a tsunami, which was unusual given the location, since the fault movement was primarily horizontal rather than the vertical displacement that typically generates large tsunami waves. The Palu Bay geography, a narrow inlet that amplified and funneled the waves, produced surges of up to 3 meters that swept through coastal neighborhoods within minutes of the shaking. But the tsunami was not the only catastrophe. The 2018 earthquake also triggered widespread liquefaction across large portions of the Palu Valley. Liquefaction is a phenomenon in which saturated soil with high water content, behaves temporarily like a liquid when subjected to intense seismic shaking. The soil loses its structural integrity entirely. Buildings, roads, and entire neighborhoods that were sitting on that soil began to sink, tilt, and in some cases were carried hundreds of meters from their original locations as the ground flowed like a slow, viscous river. The Petobo and Balaroa neighborhoods were effectively swallowed. Entire residential districts that existed in the morning did not exist by the evening. Satellite imagery taken before and after the earthquake showed the scale of what had happened, with large sections of the urban landscape simply gone, replaced by a jumbled mass of displaced soil and the remnants of what had been homes, schools, and streets. The official death toll from the 2018 disaster reached more than 4,300 people. Many more were never recovered. Entire families disappeared into the liquefied ground and were never found. This is the memory that every resident of Palu carries. The 2026 earthquake did not produce a tsunami. The liquefaction risk appears to have been limited compared to 2018, though full assessments of subsurface conditions take time. The magnitude at 6.7 was significantly lower than the 7.5 event that caused the 2018 catastrophe. And importantly, the city has had 8 years to rebuild, to update building codes, and to develop the kind of instinctive emergency response culture that only comes from having survived something truly devastating. That culture was visible in the response. Hospitals evacuated patients with speed and coordination. Residents moved without being told. Emergency teams were mobilized before dawn. The National Disaster Management Agency activated immediately, deploying assessment teams across affected areas to document damage, identify displaced residents, and determine the full scope of what had occurred. This is what a population that has learned from catastrophe looks like in the immediate aftermath of a major earthquake.
Besar hujan, ya Allah. Ya Allah. Hei. Ya Allah.
Not panic, not waiting for instructions that may be slow to arrive. Movement, instinct, evacuation. The kind of response that saves lives precisely because it does not require anyone to make a decision about whether the situation is serious enough to act. As of the hours following the earthquake, no confirmed fatalities had been officially announced, though assessments were still ongoing, and damage assessments in affected areas were continuing. Emergency teams remained on high alert. Aftershocks were expected to continue for hours and potentially days. Sulawesi sits at the intersection of several major tectonic plates, making it one of the most geologically complex and seismically active regions in Indonesia, which is itself one of the most seismically active countries on Earth. The archipelago sits squarely on the Pacific Ring of Fire, crossed by numerous active fault systems. Earthquakes are not occasional events in Indonesia. They are a constant background reality for millions of people. What happened in Palu on June 16, 2026 was serious. A magnitude 6.7 at 10 kilometers depth, more than 60 seconds of violent shaking, partially collapsed buildings, hospital evacuations, and thousands of residents in the streets before dawn. But what did not happen matters equally. There was no tsunami, there was no catastrophic liquefaction, and the response, shaped by the devastating lessons of 2018, was fast, coordinated, and instinctive. The ground in Sulawesi will shake again. The fault systems that produced the 2018 disaster and the 2026 earthquake are not finished. But what Palu has built in the years between those events, a population that knows how to respond, may be the most important earthquake preparedness achievement of any city in the world that has been forced to learn its lessons the hardest possible way. Subscribe and hit the bell, because the situation in Palu is still developing, and the full damage assessment is not yet complete.